Hello and welcome back to part 2 of how depression develops. In part 1, I went straight to the cause of depression, which is how we think about things. It is not situations themselves, but how we think about them. And in part 2 today, I want to explain more about this stress bucket. If you remember me saying, is when we have all these negative thoughts, when we think in a negative way all the time, when we sit and negatively introspect about ourselves, our lives, we think about how bad we feel. All this negative thinking gets stored up. It gets converted to anxiety and stored in what we call our stress bucket. And we fill it up and we fill it up and we fill it up. And if you imagine your stress bucket having a max fill level, a bit like your kettle, if you fill it above that, this is when the problems start to happen. And we move from this intellectual brain down to the primitive brain that steps in to try and take control. But luckily, we do have a way of emptying this stress bucket. And this is in our sleep at night. When we go to sleep at night, if you imagine that stress bucket is in this emotional, primitive part of your brain. When we go to sleep at night, what happens? We go into the REM phase of sleep. You've heard of REM, it's rapid eye movement. And we start moving things from our primitive emotional brain back to our intellectual brain that will strip out the emotion and deal with it. It'll put it in perspective. And you know how this happens. You might have had a really bad day and you go home and you tell somebody, or you might ring somebody and have a chat and you tell them about your day. And they'll go, don't worry about it, forget about it. But you can't. You're going to sleep at night, it's going round and round and round in your head. What happens is when you fall asleep and go into the REM phase of sleep, you start moving it. And either in clear or in metaphor, which is when we're dreaming, it's the dreaming phase of sleep. And in the morning you wake up and you've either forgotten about it altogether, or you think, oh, why did I bother that much about it? And what's happened, it's moved, and your intellect has stripped the emotion out, it's put it in perspective, and you no longer worry about it so much. So if all this is happening, you wake up the next morning, you have bags of energy, you jump out of bed, and you get on with your day, as happy as Larry. But that's not happening when you have depression. So what has gone wrong? Well, it's a number of things. First of all, you've been filling your stress bucket up too much. And sadly, REM sleep is restricted to 25% of our sleep. So if you've got too much in your stress bucket, the phase of your sleep can't empty it. And different things will happen for different people. One of the things that often happens with depression is because you've got too much in there, your brain is working overtime trying to get it emptied in that 25%. And it's 4 times harder to do REM sleep. Your brain is working 4 times harder than it is to go out and do a day's work. So it's exhausting. And you exhaust yourself in your sleep. And you can't get out of bed the next morning. You just want to go back to bed. Or for some people, what happens is they get into sleep, they go to sleep, and then they start doing the REM phase of sleep, but if their brain can't finish emptying the stress bucket, it'll wake them up. And you'll feel wide awake, you'll start thinking about stuff again, and you just can't get back to sleep. And you put it all back in your stress bucket. Now, for people with depression, one of the problems is sleeping too much. You're encouraged to go back to sleep all the time because your brain is exhausted. I get so many messages from people just saying it's exhausting having depression. It is, and this is one of the reasons why, is your brain is working overtime when you're asleep, and you're supposed to be re-energizing and doing all the things you're doing when you're asleep, and it's not doing that because your brain's just working overtime trying to empty this stress bucket. So what do we do about it? How do we get it emptied? Well, you may well have come onto this mailing list because you downloaded an MP3 to help with depression. And that's one of the first ways we can help get this stress bucket emptied. That's one of the things it does. Hypnosis is a contrived REM sleep, if you like, for a better phrase. And while you're in a trance doing self-hypnosis, it helps the stress bucket get emptied. So it will help empty your stress bucket. But you also need to learn how to not put so much in the first place, because that's quite central to sorting this out permanently. You know, you can keep working on getting your stress bucket emptied, but if you keep filling it up, you're just in this perpetual vicious cycle. So part 3 is about how to stop putting so much in your stress bucket and how to turn this around so you can get back to your intellectual brain. And I will see you in